Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tanner's Favorite Things. Today we have a slightly different video for you. What you're looking at is I believe a 90s, maybe late 80s era Onkyo quartz synthesized tuner amplifier. Now, the reason we're looking at this is because I wanted to start a series about thrifting. You may think, oh, thrifting, what am I going to buy? Some clothes from the 70s or some sort of used Christmas tree or something? Well, no. What we're talking about is thrifting high-end vintage stereo equipment. So I grew up in the 90s, and that was really the high point for high-end stereo as far as folks having console stereos. And this is exactly the type of unit that I would have drooled over back in the day. The good news is that you can find items like this, and in often cases, better quality than this in thrift stores around the country if you just look. I picked this receiver up for $7. And we just so happen to have Beethoven's Ninth on the radio to listen on the tuner, so we're going to tune that in a second. But before we do that, I want to zoom out and show you the speakers that I also thrifted as part of this haul. I don't know if we can get it here, but what we have here is a pretty messy setup. This is just to test these things out. But I have two speakers sitting on top of my current monitors. But what these speakers are Mirage, and they have an 8-inch driver. Let's go ahead and look at the badge there. Mirage. This is a Canadian brand. And if we take the cover off, you can see we have an 8-inch driver with a 2-inch tweeter. Pretty standard. But again, these are from the early 80s, maybe mid 80s. They haven't been abused, and they sound really, really great. So these speakers I also picked up for $6. So we're 13 bucks into this whole rig, amp to speakers. But let's go ahead and hear what this thing sounds like when I turn on the tuner. So if we just crank up the volume, let's hear what it sounds like. So I feel very lucky that I just happened to tune in and find Beethoven's Ninth on this tuner. This is on 89.1, our local Utah classical station. So I'm not exactly sure who the performance is, who the orchestra is, but one of my favorite pieces and a really great piece to use as a benchmark on any kind of stereo. So like I said, we have a 40-watt receiver here, and we do get all kinds of digital information here. We have a signal strength, the APR system, which has certain presets, preset stations, and then you can also see the buttons corresponding to those presets, FM, AM band selector, and if we move over here, we have the option for phono or turntable. Then we have the tuner, which is built into this unit, tape 1/CD or tape 2. I love that it says dubbing here. You can tell that a lot of people recorded from cassette to cassette back in the day, and this is kind of meant to address that. And then we have our 2-band EQ, just treble and bass with a balance knob, a volume, big old knob, which is nice and tactile, and then some tuning buttons that give you some extra sonic options. Other than that, it looks like a brushed stainless steel front, always a nice touch. All right, let's go ahead and turn these items around, see the back of it, and call it a day. All right, let's start at the back of the speaker first. Pretty basic here, just one panel on the back with two terminals, positive and negative, and then a little badge here that says Mirage SM-.5. And you can see that they are out of Scarborough, Ontario, Canada. Got the serial number. The back of the other speaker is pretty much identical, so don't need to look at that. Let's go ahead and move over to the back of the Onkyo receiver. All right, let's start over here on the left side. This is a spot for the antenna. You can see it actually had a clip where an antenna would raise off the back of it, but I just have a cord going up there to get this thing to work. Then we have our inputs, including a ground little dial there. If you have an item that requires an external ground, you can wire it off to that. Then we have our phono, our tape 1 and tape 2 inputs, and I actually have this Focusrite Scarlett 18920 hooked into the back of this as well. So these are coming through from this, so I can actually hear the sound from my DAW. So I'm basically just using this as a monitor setup right now. But you can see we have some information about the model, TX-35, and made in Japan with a serial number. And our speaker inputs, you can see an A and a B, so 4 speakers total. And then this key touch tone, not exactly sure what that does. Haven't been able to discern what that switch actually does. But if we move over, we have 2 AC inputs. So if you want to plug in 2 more items to the back of this, you have 2 outlets right there. So that's nice. So I know that there's seemingly endless options as far as vintage stereo equipment out there, but you can generally count on a few brands to deliver high quality items if you are going to thrift them. Onkyo is usually a safe bet. Denon, Marantz, if you ever see Marantz in there, go ahead and grab it. That stuff is highly sought after. I doubt you'll ever see a Macintosh amp in there, but if you do ever see Macintosh, usually has like wood panel, either like walnut or some sort of mahogany, but that's also one of those brands that you may stumble across. As far as speakers, what I look for in a vintage speaker is a nice enclosure. So you have a cabinet that has a nice walnut veneer or something similar, and it looks like MDF construction otherwise, but you want to make sure that the woofers don't have any tears, holes, or even repairs in some cases, and that the tweeters are just, there. So in this case, this set of speakers was well worth $6 or $7 to me, so I went ahead and picked it up and am not disappointed. I live in Salt Lake City, so we have a really good thrifting scene here. I don't know what it's like in a lot of other cities, but you can go to a Savers, you can go to a Goodwill, you can go to a Deseret Industries, and generally find some sort of vintage stereo equipment if you look hard enough. These were just 2 items that I happened to pick up while I was accompanying my girlfriend on a thrifting excursion and thought that they were worth sharing. So I'd love to see what you guys have picked up at a Goodwill or any other thrift store. Feel free to share your pics or videos, and hopefully you can plan on seeing a bit more content like this in my channel. I want to make a concerted effort to document a bit more of this high-end vintage stereo equipment as well as the musical instruments that you're probably familiar with on this channel. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you liked this content. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe. Thanks again, and I hope to see you on the next one.